reports come from? Did you get an initial?
One Pod Vader.
That's football.
Every angle of the NFL covered.
All that kind of stuff, I get it.
This,
no question about it,
is Next Fan Up.
We're going to unleash hell here in December.
Oh, hey, it is I, Josh, your Detroit Lions superfan, and I am back for yet another edition of Saturday Morning Fantasy Football here on the Next Fan Up podcast, powered by Fantrax. Want to real quick give those guys a shout out. Make sure you're checking out the great content that all those guys have up there at Fantrax and Fantrax HQ. And it is week 4 already, friends. I can't believe we're already going to be a quarter of the way into the NFL season. And if you're playing fantasy, about a third of the way through the regular season, my friends. And to help us out and get through this season, we have another special guest this week, another return guest from last season, and one of my favorites from last year. It's Mr. Derek Brown, a.k.a. D-Bro. What's going on, man?
Dude, I'm living life. I cannot believe we are look, after Monday, we are at the precipice of being like 25% of the regular season is kaput, gone, dust. And honestly, for as long as we've been waiting for this to happen, to get to week 1, it's flying by, man. I feel like it's Christmas Day, and all of a sudden the presents are opened, and we're so far into this, it's going to be gone before we know it.
I know it. It seems like we're just learning, but yet it's almost, it feels like it's going by so fast. You know, we're getting all this info, and you know the season's starting to mature, and it's just it's before you know it, it's gone, man. So I definitely know what you mean there, and I wanted to thank you for hopping on the Next Fan Up Saturday morning fantasy show here with us again this year, Derek. We wanted to make sure, first of all, before we kind of get into everything, where can everybody find you out there on Twitter, and tell us what you've been working on lately?
Oh, yeah, man. So you can check me out on Twitter at Dbro_FFB. Look, we are in season time like I'm talking about. So all of my stuff right now in season wise is coming out at the Quant Edge. You can sign up and get full season access, get $25 off with my promo code DBRO, TQE. Look, I'm rocking 2 articles every single week. One of those is 10 stats to win your week that comes out every single week on Thursday. And my other is wide receiver cornerback matchups, whether good, whether bad, whether ones to target in DFS or regular season, because I don't just hit the highlights. I try to go a little bit deeper. And I know we're going to get to one of my love list guys this week, but those are the 2 things that I'm rocking every single week. And pretty much, man, just like this, like I'm on all kinds of podcasts and the airwaves, and people are probably going to get tired of hearing my southern twang by the end of the season.
Highly doubt it, my friend. But yeah, I can definitely attest to that. Like the 10 stats myself, you're just dropping dimes, little stat dimes out there every week. So everybody make sure you are checking that out. And of course, Derek and I are going to run through some situations that can potentially have an impact on our very own fantasy rosters this week. And again, this year moving a little bit away from DFS. You know, we're not scared to throw a couple nice DFS plays out there if we have to, but mostly going to be talking boom bust, start sits or studs and duds, if you will, whatever you want to call it. We're basically just here to try and help you guys out. But first, D-Bro, this year, you already remember last year we asked about the favorite breakfast cereal, and that's because most people are going to be hearing this Saturday morning. But I wanted to ask you as the guest this year, people growing up, we all kind of had those go-to shows when we were little. And, I've admitted that I was a Rocky and Bullwinkle guy myself. Just wanted to ask you real quick, what was your favorite Saturday morning cartoon or your favorite TV show growing up on Saturdays?
So my love, thank you so much, Hasbro, because my love has not ended with my childhood. It has continued into adulthood, and it is alive and well, baby. I loved Transformers growing up, and I will not be ashamed to say I got some Transformers ink on me, and I will get more in the future. Between Transformers and G.I. Joe, it was on every Saturday morning. And Transformers, man, like, it doesn't matter. Like, I could have had the plague and been, like, 105 fever and on my deathbed, and I probably would have been, like, crying, screaming at my parents to turn it on.
Right. I don't care if I have 103.10. Give me a popsicle and turn it on. I like it, man. Well, that's good stuff. That's the latest Transformers movie, true story. Some of that filmed not too far from where I work. So
That's boss, man.
Interesting tidbit for you. But so what we'll do here, we'll go ahead and get into this position by position like we always do, talking week 4 in the fantasy landscape of things. And we'll go ahead and start off with quarterback. And Derek, last week we saw 6 new starters under center. And of course, we're referring to good old Danny Dimes, Kyle Allen, Teddy Bridgewater, Mason Rudolph, Luke Falk, and Josh Rosen. Now it looks like, Daniel Jones and Kyle Allen, definitely those two had the best debuts out of these half dozen guys, but it seems like we can probably safely fire them up in most lineups. I mean, I can't imagine that most people, Kyle Allen's not a highly rostered guy at this point, but I mean, most people in 2 QB leagues, I mean, you have to safely fire them up if you have those guys. But are you taking any chances on any of the other 4?
Wait, what? So let's run through those 4. So Mason Rudolph, I'm blanking right now. Who are the other 3 that we're talking about here?
Your boy Teddy Ballgame and Luke Falk and Josh Rosen. It's pretty gross, dude. I mean, I don't blame you if you just want to move on to the next question.
Teddy Rosen, I mean, pretty much the only person I could see having a good game out of any of those is Mason Rudolph. They're at home this week. Cincinnati's been bleeding out points. And yes, I know this is a get-right game for James Conner, but you cannot sit here and default the fact that Mason Rudolph couldn't end up with 3 touchdowns here with short fields. We know Andy Dalton plays terribly versus the Steelers, especially when he walks into Heinz Field. I could see Rudolph having a good game, but the rest of them, nah, I can't touch him, man. Rosen, for all of Rosen, man, if you've seen all the clips on Twitter, that poor dude has been tossing some dimes, and everybody has stone hands and alligator arms down there in South Beach. Like, they're just like, nah, I ain't catching it. I want to fall down. I don't want it. I don't want it. It's like a bad cold. They're like, I don't want the football. Get it away from me.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it's like Jarvis Landry on Hard Knocks last year. It's very contagious. It seems like down there in South Beach, my friend. The one thing I will say about Teddy Bridgewater, Sean Payton, it seems like they definitely are being very conservative with the way that they're using their game plan. So Bridgewater looking like a real game manager out there. But the one thing I say that we can glean from that is there was a ton of talk about, having Taysom Hill in some 2 quarterback leagues. And I don't think that's necessary anymore. I think you can safely drop guys like Taysom Hill from your roster if you are in a super flex or something like that. Maybe Scott Fishbowl. But Teddy Bridgewater definitely looks like he is going to be the guy that's filling in for Drew Brees until that he returns. But speaking of some older quarterbacks there and Drew Brees, I wanted to move on to the another ageless one here with Tom Brady. If this is a 1 QB league this week, Derek, he's got some beat up wide receivers, kind of a lack of it sounds like Edelman's going to play, but a lack of passing targets here with Josh Gordon beat up, and just kind of, there just seems to be like some I don't know, some bad juju with the receiving core there. But at Buffalo, you rolling him out in a 1 QB league this week?
Brady? Hell no. Like, I don't want – I will stream people over Brady. So I broke this down in my 10 stats article. Over the last 29 games for the Buffalo Bills defense, they've allowed one, count them on one hand, 300-yard passer. Now, that happens to be Brady, but in that game, he threw for no touchdowns and no interceptions. And in the last 4 meetings versus Buffalo, Brady has thrown for 3 total touchdowns and 4 interceptions. I want nothing to do with Tom Brady this week. Like, I will stream dudes. Hell, and this might sound like a hot take, as long as he's healthy, give me Case Keenum this week over Tom Brady. I will take the points. I think that he has a better game than Tom Brady versus the Buffalo Bills this week. And people are going to hate that and probably at me on Twitter. And all I got to say is come at me, bro.
Well, you already answered one of the questions I was going to ask you a little bit later. Not positional related, but just kind of wanted to get your feelings on that Giants-Redskins game. So it sounds like you and I are in the same boat there, my friend, with that game. Expected to have some good points there. So I definitely like the back and forth and some of the fantasy potential on Daniel Jones, who we already mentioned, but also Case Keenum. Definitely some potential there for some fantasy goodness. And a guy that I really like this week, Jacoby Brissett against the Raiders. The secondary still beat up. They're still not good at getting after the quarterback. I mean, you with me on this one this week? What are your feelings about rolling Jacoby Brissett out there?
I think he has. If you're in 2 QB leagues, then yeah, fire him up. I don't think he has a top 12 week. I know the Raiders are absolutely atrocious versus wide receivers, but we're looking at a Colts team that is beat up to hell and back. And right now, T.Y. Hilton, I'll be honest, I'm surprised if T.Y. Hilton plays. This week, he's looking doubtful, and people are going to automatically go because whether you're dynasty, whether you follow the NFL draft, there are all kinds of people getting on Paris Campbell, and I get it. I understand it, but we still haven't seen the target volume there. So I like Jacoby Brissett. I think he presents a very nice floor. But outside of 2 QB leagues, I'm not going to roll him out this week because I think all this does is intensify my love for Marlon Mack this week versus the Raiders.
That makes a ton of sense. You bring up a good question. Let's say you have Jacoby Brissett on your roster and you also have a guy like Baker Mayfield, assuming you haven't upgraded to a better quarterback at this point, and those are the 2 guys left on your roster here in a 1 QB league. I mean, we can't trust Baker this week versus Baltimore, right?
I would trust Baker over Brissett. I'll throw that out there.
Okay.
And the only reason I'll say that is because he has OBJ, man. OBJ can go off in any type of matchup, any type of situation. It can pop up $150 and 2 touchdowns. And the fact that he has that cheat code as his number 1 wide receiver, say OBJ gets 1. If Nick Chubb gets another one through the air, if any of the wide receivers or even I would put Baker as having a similar floor to Jacoby Brissett, but he laps Jacoby Brissett like through and through as far as ceiling this week in mine, as far as what I could see.
This is why we ask these tough questions here. Of course, there's, I'm asking for our super fans to throw out some start-sit questions here. Hopefully we can get some of these this week, but that's one in particular that I specifically gleaned off somebody's roster. So wanted to throw that one out there. And with that one, I think, we should be good here with the QB talk. So we could safely move on to the running back position here. Anybody else that you wanted to hit on though, real quick before we move into the running backs?
I feel like people do not give enough love, and they keep throwing out narratives of why to not start Phillip Rivers. Of it's a blowout, it's going to be the Dolphins. Dude, don't overthink it. Don't be dumb. Just start Phillip Rivers. Like if you got him, start him. It's not hard. Fantasy does not have to be hard. Why do people make it hard? If you have Phillip Rivers, start him this week. All right, fine. I'm off my pedestal. I'm off my podium. We can move on.
Good stuff. No, you make a good point. It seems like once an episode here on this show, we are reminding people, don't get cute. I think that transitions nicely because there has been a little bit of hubbub about Rivers' backfield mate there, Melvin Gordon, coming back this week. And as we record this, we've learned earlier today that the news of Justin Jackson being out this Sunday against the Dolphins. And I feel like with the workload that Austin Eckler is now guaranteed, you can't really be scared to start Austin Eckler at this point. I understand that Melvin Gordon just rejoined the team on Thursday, but I mean, it's got to be wait and see with Melvin Gordon, right? I mean, we at least want to give this guy 1 week to see what he looks like coming into the game if he's in game shape. And I mean, and on that same note, I mean, we have to roll Austin Eckler out there. He seems like he's probably the RB1 this week. Would you agree?
Oh my gosh, man. Eckler is plug and play. You do not take him out of your lineups. To quote my buddy over at TQE, Matty D, there is a difference between gym shape and football shape. And you can't look, if Anthony Lynn wants to talk, let him run his mouth. I do not believe that Melvin Gordon is going to play more than a handful of snaps. get more than 8 touches. Maybe, I mean, good God,